Clorinde was very scrutinized on her initial release for being quite the underwhelming DPS, but is that really the case? Let's delve into that today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Chlorophyll is a pretty strong character in my opinion. In fact, I would even make the case for her being the best electro character in the game, and if you want to try her out, she's on banners right now. But where can you go to afford cheaper Primo Gems? Good news, Loot Bar is here to help us out. Loot Bar is a splendid service which can offer you cheaper Stellar Jades compared to the official prices shown in-game. Look at this comparison between the official cost and the Loot Bar cost. New users get a wonderful 8% off, and the prices are up to 23% cheaper compared to the official channel. Loot Bar is a fully saved service and has countless positive reviews, but how does it actually work? Allow me to show you. First, input your UID. That's right, you need no login information whatsoever. Choose your desired package, and then look at that. More Primo Gems for me. This is all legit since the site uses a VPN, which is how they cheapen the Primo Gems, and official top-up methods are used. Check out Loot Bar today to save on all your gacha needs. Let's start with the case for why she aged well. For starters, she remains as the best electro DPS even months after her initial release. I don't expect her to get power crept within the next few patches either, since her current track record has been good so far. She remains as being the best within her specific niche, so for people who want a diverse elemental roster, Clorinde is an excellent choice. She's really consistently acquired new teammates over time as well. Shilonen, for example, works fantastically with her. But that's a given, considering that the DJ Cat works with essentially every single character in the game. Ororon was a neat way to bring Clorox Bleach into Taser setups, which she was able to operate in before. But I feel that the Edgelord did a good amount for her there. And Moika ends up working splendidly in her Overload teams, as Clorinde can perform plenty of quickfire normal attacks which can build up fighting spirit. She's an excellent answer to some of Genshin's most horrible modern bosses, such as the Tenebrous Papilla. Pairing her with Fischl will allow you to whittle down that thing's shield in no time, without any need of Night Soul. Of course, you'll still get knocked around like crazy, but that's just the Papilla doing what it does best, being an annoying piece of crud. And while many of our DPS characters have had crazy shifts in their overall meta positions, whether that be for the better or for the worse, Clorinde has managed to maintain a relatively stable position in the Genshin meta. I'd say that she's stayed as a consistent A-tier character even to this day. I feel that a big reason as to why people feel like she was underwhelming is simply because she was released right after Father, who at the time was an absolute bombshell release, landing herself in S tier immediately upon arrival. And even though Moika has stolen the crown of best pyro DPS, she still remains as an excellent versatile pull to this day. I feel like if Clorox Bleach came out before Arlecchino, she would have been received with much more positivity. 4.5 was a total dead patch. And Chiori wasn't really considered to be a very interesting or exciting release. She's considered decent now with the wheelchair core being a thing, but back then, there was little good to be said about the cutting edge of fashion, so following up that release really wouldn't have been all that difficult. I suppose it was hard to stand out in such a powerhouse region too. Linny, settle down, everlasting as the moon, and our beloved Lady Farina were all meta-defining characters that shook the very earth beneath them. Clorox being a fine release most likely caused some more of a negative opinion surrounding her power level, since every character coming out of the time was wildly powerful. However, I believe that there are many aspects regarding her that aged really well. For instance, the pyro DPS meta has been moving at a rapid pace. Even the almighty Novalet himself faced challenge in the form of Mualani. Clorinde remains as the undeniable best in slot within the Electro niche. If you want to play the strongest possible Electro-based teams, then you're going to be turning to this champion duelist eventually. There were two other Fontaine main DPS releases that I haven't touched on yet, Riesli and Navia. Rio was pretty good in my opinion, just a little clunky to play down to C0. He's mostly lifted up by the super strong team comps that he has access to. He's gained a new team in himself, Bennett, Moika, and Shilonen. Navia was already really good on release, but she managed to push her way into S tier when Kachina equipping 4-piece Intercity arrived into the game. We got the DJ Cat, then the rest was history. Clorox got plenty of new teammates over time too, arguably a unit that has received some of the most new teammates out of all the Fontaine units. Modern supports have excellent synergy with her, bringing her performance up highly. However, compared to the other Fontainians, it's not like she's paved any new ground. Sure, she's the best Electro DPS, but when the likes of Navia, Arlecchino, and Linny are all in S tier, and then you have Mr. Settle Down, who's on an entirely different plane of existence, perhaps Clorox Bleach's modern performance could be seen as underwhelming when you see other DPSs using the same supports as her to much greater effect. I personally believe that the champion duelist is better than Rio Beastly, so there's that. It's understandable where the sentiment of her being just okay came from, since she isn't S tier like the rest of the Fontaine cast. But the way that I see it, she aged really well because she's such a consistent and reliable DPS. You know what you're getting into with this character. She's so flexible across many different team setups, and the fact that she's still getting set upgrades over time brings me hope. What would be the case against her Raging Well be? Well, simple. She's not the best DPS option that there is. Unless you're really interested in elemental coverage, she hasn't really bested any other modern main carry in terms of damage output. So far, I've been comparing Clorinde to her Fontanian colleagues. However, I've yet to talk about the DPSs that have been introduced during the not long patch cycles. I do think that Hoyo has done a good job of keeping their older DPSs relevant during this new region, since the newer supports are able to boost up the performances of older units to new heights. My personal favorite example of this would be the Moika Ganyu synergy, a team which I'm personally really fond of, and as I've already stated earlier, Clorinde herself has been on the receiving end of some pretty nifty buffs. However, so have the other characters released before her. No matter what, the Duelist is always going to be 2 steps behind her competition. No Valette getting 50 billion buffs just because Hoyo was feeling a little silly that day, Arlecchino getting forward melt, Navia and Shielonen single-handedly saving the reputation of Geo together. Meanwhile, Clorinde remains hanging around in the A-tier club. Then you bring in the DPSs that have come out during Notlon. Mualani is a speedrunning machine. It's absolutely absurd as to how powerful she is. Bosses tremble in their boots when they hear the approach of a Shark Surfer. Kenichi Nahao or another solid DPS duo, who recently got buffed by the Exalted Pyro Archon. The damage of those two is really commendable, and while they're not deleting the game in the same way that Mualani is, I would say that they perform better than Clorox Bleach on the whole. Chaska's good, but I wouldn't call her as good as the other two. She's about equal to Clorinde. Then you have the legendary Exalted Pyro Archon. Need I say more? This is obviously some super intense competition. The Duelist features so many positive qualities, and objectively speaking, you could say that she has by definition aged well due to the fact that she's gained many good supports over time. We genuinely could not be more spoiled for choice in terms of DPSs these days, especially when the banner of the freaking DPS Archon just passed. But if you were to ask me, I personally think that Clorox aged very, very well. Compared to the initial opinion that people had on her, I think she's definitely proven herself over time. Okay, she's not the best DPS in the world, but she's still the definitive best at multiple things, which grants her pull value quite a few points. Sure, she has big heels to fill competition-wise, but if you value the specific qualities that she brings to the table, you're gonna get those in spades. It can be quite nice to get a unit and know that they will consistently be good for a long time without their main position being challenged. She won't get replaced until we get an Electro DPS that is equally as flexible as her that can outperform her in every scenario in which she is good. That just isn't happening anytime soon in my opinion. She's only gotten better as time has went on. And I'd say that public perception reflects that more now. There's far more people who acknowledge Clorinde as a good unit compared to before, which makes me rather happy to see. I can completely understand someone not really being interested in her, since yeah, she is fairly skippable if you have other strong DPS characters, but her ability to handle so many situations to such an excellent degree makes her a fantastic pick in my opinion. Plus, we only have one Shielonen, we only have one Kazuha. It's refreshing to have a unit who is very versatile teams-wise. Overload takes up an entirely different roster as opposed to, say, Aggravate teams, then compare those to Hyper Clorinde teams. The possibilities are essentially endless with this woman. This makes her accessible to many different types of accounts. There are plenty of folks out there who don't have every single support under the sun. Therefore, building 2 effective Abyss teams is far more difficult for such people. In those cases, having a limited 5-star DPS who can genuinely enjoy teammates such as Yunjin and Autoron are appreciated. It's fair enough that people underrated her before. Fontaine was a total powerhouse region. I usually don't care much for DPS characters that are super middle of the road. I myself am the type to prefer focusing on the top echelon of damage dealing characters. Yet with that being said, even I have to step back for a moment to commend how solid Clorox's shelf life has been. While Arlecchino is objectively a better character than her meta-wise, a brand new option which beats out Father's performance was released within 5 patches. Clorinde's main role hasn't been challenged yet, and I doubt that we'll be seeing that happen anytime soon. In fact, it makes me pleased to see how many people are genuinely excited for her currently running banner, enjoying her power level to its fullest. I quite like the character myself, and she has some of the sickest battle animations in all of Genshin, only rivaled by her current banner partner, Arlecchino. She really does have a whole lot going for her. But what do you think of Clorinde? Has her performance next to other DPSs convinced you that she's not really worth your time, or has her brilliant consistency convinced you of her pull value? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week, every week on Saturdays, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so that we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to ask you the pressing question of whether Clorinde has aged well or not. This has been Juice, signing out, and listen, she can comfortably deal with the frickin' papilla. That's more than I could ever ask for.